just finished talking about how we're going to make this look good. Now it's time to take a look at all of the responses. What does it look like on the back end after someone has already given us the information that we've been looking for, whether it's a quiz, a test, just a survey, or a questionnaire? We've had a little bit of a glimpse as to what it looks like on the back end, but now we're going to take a deeper dive into how we can manage and take a look at all this information. So the first thing that you have to understand is that you should look at the bars or the tabs up here along the top. You see that we have the theme is already identified. We can do the forward and backward arrows, and you also see the responses menu item up there at the top, as well as the insert view and all of those other good things. But here we are going to dive into choose a response destination. This is brand new in this new form of Google Forms. It used to be that it just automatically dumped to a spreadsheet. You had no way of choosing what you wanted to do with it exactly. But now you have three major options. The first one is make a new spreadsheet based on all of the submissions that come in with this form. In other words, you have a form and then you have a spreadsheet that all of the information dumps into that actual Google spreadsheet. And you've learned a lot about spreadsheets already, so you should be relatively comfortable with that. And that's the most powerful way of actually running and using one of these forms. It's the way that we always used to run them, but now you have a couple of options to dumb it down or pare it down if you want to. So I would say for almost all of your uses, you're going to pick new spreadsheet, and you can even name that spreadsheet from right here, but I like new survey responses. It tells me exactly what it is. It's my new survey, and it's the responses from that survey. You can also pick, this is pretty clever or ingenious, if you have a bunch of different surveys that are all feeding into the same concept, you can actually pick that you want it to go into a single sheet from within a spreadsheet. So now if you have a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet, when you have those tabs along the bottom, you can actually say, I want all of the responses for this to actually dump into a single sheet, and you can have that one document with multiple sheets from different surveys all funneling down to one place. It's a fairly clever way of aggregating multiple different surveys into one spot. You can also say, I just want to keep all the responses only in this form. That's this button right down here next to that create button. If you poke that or press that, it's going to keep all of those responses right here in the response summary of responses. And this is all you're ever going to see. You're not going to have a spreadsheet that is actually associated with it. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about by going back to choose response destination. And now I'm going to create this new spreadsheet right here. And after it's done doing that, it's actually going to identify it up here. You can see it's thinking, setting up the spreadsheet. As soon as it's done creating that spreadsheet, there we go. Now I can view my responses in this spreadsheet form. I can do that by clicking on this right here. And now you see I have a spreadsheet instead of that summary view. So I can see the exact responses of people. Up along the top in the first field, right up here, you see all of the questions or all of the survey topics or questions that you've created, and then below them you would see all of the answers. So you can see the timestamp right here when that person took it, and all of the responses or the pieces that that individual filled in. And obviously if you have something like a name field in here or what have you at the beginning, you're going to see that person's name. You could even have a student ID or what have you built into this form so that you can collect the data on that individual. So now automatically you'll see that the top up here, these field names, are frozen. They use a freeze frame up here so that as you scroll down you see that all the information disappears. So if you have hundreds of responses, no matter, even if you scroll down to the bottom, you will still see your field names. It's extremely nice. And if I close out of this survey right here with this tab, if I actually kill that, it just brings me right back to my survey potentially right here where I have my response button still, the live form, and I can kill this survey right here as well, or that portion of the survey. But now you might be saying, yeah, but I like that response view. I don't want to always go to the spreadsheet. That's not a problem. You can come up here to responses. You can see you still have that option for summary of responses, but now you have the view, the actual responses option, and you even are given that third option to change that destination. So if I click on that, see this familiar dialog box pop up. So I can change this at any time. Even if I create a new spreadsheet here, later on I could decide that I want it to stay inside of the spreadsheet. Realistically, the only reason why you would want to keep it built into the form and disassociate it from that spreadsheet, in other words, cut it off, no spreadsheet associated, would be if you are anticipating that you're going to have thousands and thousands of responses, because Google Forms only lets you collect X number of responses before it kind of shuts down that spreadsheet. So unless you're anticipating just crazy numbers of responses, realistically you want to have a spreadsheet, because that's where the power comes in. You can then go back to this spreadsheet, and if you have tons of data in here, you can write formulas that will collect the averages and the sums of things. So if you have a science project and all the students are entering their lab data into this form, now you can have an aggregate total of all their different measurements and all the different measuring readouts that you have throughout that lab. And if you're doing an English language piece in here where people are entering the verbs that they think of, they get a snapshot of all the different verbs that everyone else wanted to put in here. It's an extremely powerful way to collect the data, and the fact that it's tied with a spreadsheet is brilliant. Most of the time you are not going to want to take away that option. There are a couple of little interesting things that you can still do either with responses or with the form data in general. One of them is still underneath the responses here, and actually you can learn a lot more about it by going right next door to help, and you go to the help center and you can learn a lot more about what in the world a get prefilled URL is. Well, truly it's this basically. You can have the form pre-populated with some information to, in other words, to give your end user some hints about what they might want to put into the individual areas within your form. It takes a little bit of know-how. For instance, you have to understand how to key in something like the string you see here where you have the values of 0, and then you have to put in the entry values followed by all the rest of the string of the information within the URL in order to make this work properly. But you can do it, and there's a little cheat sheet right here on the Google Drive page. If you just type in up here in the Google search, get prefilled URL, and it will take you right here to this parameters page where you can learn more about it if you're so inclined. We're not going to go that far just because it's pretty odd for someone to actually need that kind of ability to do that prefill. But it's possible, so it's very nice to have just in case you need it. The other one is you can unlink the form very easily, or you can delete all responses. Thankfully, they make sure that you're certain before you do that, so I'm going to hit cancel. But that will delete all the responses in your form, which you might want to do because maybe you were doing a bunch of testing first before you sent it out, and instead of having to go in there and highlight each of the cells and delete them, or the rows and delete them, you could just press that button, delete everything, start from scratch, send out your form, and be good to go. Then over here under File, we have two more options that I want to go over with you. One is Download As. This Download As is going to download a CSV file, which is essentially a spreadsheet file, comma-separated values. That's all that really means. And it's going to download not the form, but all of the responses to the form in a spreadsheet for like Excel if you want to send it off to someone who may not be using Google Docs or understand how to use the Google spreadsheets. You can do this and then email it to them. You can also embed your form. If you click that embed button, now you see you have just different heights and widths that you can pick from in pixels, and all you have to do is click on this and copy it. You can do Command-C or Control-C if you're on a PC, and that copies that HTML coding that then you can paste into a website, into a learning management system, so that the form is built directly into that web page, so you don't have to redirect people back and forth to and from places anymore. You can just copy and paste that embed code, embed it in a HTML ready zone, and you are all up and running with your brand new Google form ready to collect responses. That's the end of how we collect, manage, and understand all the different areas and components of responses from Google Forms.